Well, all right then. Wow. The guitar as synthesizer. I have the, can you see it? Oh, I can't lift it up high enough for the camera. It's the Cloudburst from, I'll take it out of my little pedal vise. From Strymon. There it is, the Strymon Cloudburst, just look at it. Now I managed to unplug one side. Because I got this nifty little cable set up here to, how did I mute one side? Well, there goes my demo. That's weird. That side works. This side doesn't. Well, that was anticlimactic, right? Ah, there we go. So it has a TRS sort of splitter, TRS to 2 mono 1/4 inch or whatever, you know, to split out of the, because it's this new sort of smaller pedal housing. And so instead of having right and left jack, there's one jack that you can split the stereo by using a splitter. So that's what you're hearing. That is what you are hearing. So anyway, fun. I assume you guys can hear it okay, right? What are you guys talking about in the chat? We've got 100 people online. What's the difference from Big Sky, says LRM? So this is mainly all about atmosphere and shimmer. If I turn the mix on 10, you can get crazy stuff like that happening. I'll turn up the mod a little bit. You guys thought this was a guitar show? It's a keyboard show. Sounds like keyboards. Bring the mix down a little bit, and it's less crazy. Now, some really interesting things happen. There's a mode that is like more of less upper harmonics. And if I turn off this compressor and hit a fuzz, sounds like I'm clipping somewhere. I don't know if you guys are hearing that, but it might be clipping. So, don't want to distort the stream. But anyway, that sounds kind of cool, I think, with the fuzz. And if you bring the decay way back and the pre-delay way back and the mix up, you can just get some cool... just kind of some neat sounds that aren't just the typical, shimmer stuff. I like it, and the tone knob is really wide ranging, so you can get a really dark. Clipping, so I'll just go into my mixer here and pull down the faders a bit so we don't get overloaded. Pull down that fader, pull down this fader. A little less distortion. Let's turn up the mod. See, I like that weird, what's that crazy aliasing sound in the background? It's kind of cool. Get some weird like overtones going. If I put it in one of the other modes here with more overtones. I'm just getting used to it, so bear with me. That's kind of cool. Kind of screams set like that. It's pretty fun. I'm trying to find a way to use it in a video that's a little bit different than stuff that I've seen. It gets really interesting when you combine it with other effects. So that's a phaser, and hear how as soon as I turned the phaser on, it started to do different overtones. And if I turn off the phaser, it was a little more linear. So with the phaser on, I love that. It sounds like arpeggiation or something coming in. It's kind of interesting. So try and figure out a way to use it in a musical context in a video. Olivia says, I could listen to you play for hours. Hey, thanks. I'm just making noise. I appreciate that. Just having fun. Oh, yeah. This is my old Hyperfuzz, by the way. You guys hip to the Hyperfuzz, the Boss Hyperfuzz? If I turn off all the effects. It's a great sounding fuzz that you can't get anymore. Like, it was out for a while, and then they discontinued it. It was like, I think it was made in the 90s. Protein shake. Gotta wake up. So happy Easter, everybody. For those that celebrate, and those that don't, and those that just do Easter egg hunts and stuff. I don't know. I thought, is anybody going to be here for Easter? I think Easter is one that traditionally maybe I've taken off in the past. But today I was like, no, I'm going to go do it in case there's some Easter stragglers that want to hang. So, why not? Joe Harvey says, what's this effect? So the effect is the Cloudburst from Strymon, which is kind of a, people would consider, turn off the fuzz, a lot of people would use it for, wow, that's crazy with the overtones. This is with the, it's set in kind of an unusual way right now, where I've got almost minimum pre-delay, minimum decay. It's a reverb that's kind of meant for pretty, this kind of, that kind of thing, right? But if I set the controls in kind of an unusual way, it's really, and I once again, I'm not sure if that's really quiet or not now. Maybe I went a little too far with the faders. I'm pull them up a little bit. But to me, I love the kind of 80s keyboard sound that I could get with it. That doesn't really sound like reverb. It sounds more like, you've got a stereo synth plugged in or something with the, LFOs cranked up and stuff. There's a super chat there from Anza Johns. Any tips for making solos cut through live with a dirty amp without actually boosting volume? I'm almost at max headroom with the amp. Well, it can kind of be about mids, I think. If you push your mid-range more, you will tend to get a more, focused tone. So something like a Cocoa Boost, which I actually have one on this board. I don't have mine. I'm waiting for my pedal board to come back from tour. So this isn't my normal pedal board, but it's a little board that I have here, and I can actually show you this because I have a Cocoa here. So this is a straight up. Let me turn off the reverb. This is a really boring sound. It's just it's a plug-in that I've got going here right now. But if I were to just turn on this pedal, so that's a Cocoa Boost, and so it's boring like this. But if I go to, let me see here. Let me set this plug-in so that it's on channel 2. Take me just a second here to do this. Let's do both. Let me get more distortion happening. And then turn that up, turn that on. Same on the other side. Got two plugins going here because I'm playing in stereo. Turn that on, turn this on. Kind of sounds weird to me for some reason. It's not really balanced, and I got a little ground loop going for some reason. But with this sound, that's the Cocoa Boost through dirt. This ground loop is unfortunate. I have to solve that. But anyway, you can hear how the mids just go right through the center and kind of with it off. Right? It really makes the guitar scream. Driving me crazy. One sec here. I'm going to mute it for myself as well because I don't want to hear that. Mute. All right, there we go. Got rid of all the noise. I'm going to put this down for now. I'm not really happy with that sound anyway, so it doesn't inspire me to play. But I just wanted to show you the Cloudburst really and what I'm doing here today. Enjoying myself. Coming up with a little demo. But yeah, a mid boost, if you're out of gain and you're out of volume, I should say, you're out of range, is kind of all you can do is really focus your tone then through the mids. So I would recommend a Cocoa. You just heard it even in front of a boring plug-in kind of amp sound. It does a great thing that sort of, there's like a more polite range master because it's not as dirty as a range master, but it just sort of more focuses your tone up through the mids and makes your sound slice and hits the guitar right in the range where guitar speakers are really active and kind of like if you catch feedback and stuff, it's easier with those mids kind of boosted like that. Lawrence says, "Happy Easter." There he is. What's my all-time favorite drink if I had to choose? Coffee. But you mean like an alcoholic beverage? I vacillate between like drinking ciders and occasionally a gluten-free beer or wine, and I like tequila. I like a nice martini every now and then, vodka martini. I'll mix it up. I'm an equal opportunity. It's hard to pick a favorite. I get bored of, it's like, what do you feel like tonight? It's either, do I want a glass of, do I want a margarita or, just Don Julio on the rocks or something? Or do I want a glass of wine? Do I want a whatever? So it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick. Any opinions on Duesenberg guitars? They're pretty cool. I mean, I have never owned one. I came really close a couple times because when I was with Chris Cornell, we had a hookup with him, and Yogi had some, and Chris always had some. and I just didn't get one, and I probably should have got one back then. I really liked the Mike Campbell one back then, and I think it came out when we were still playing and stuff. And I often thought of, their reps would come by and stuff, gigs, and I often thought of ordering one, but I just never got around to it. Yeah, I think they're neat. They were one of the first. I mean, when I gotta give credit where credit is due. My guitar has a pickup in it with a window cover. Right, it's a regular humbucker, but it's got a window cover. Duesenberg was doing that a while back. They had those window covers on their pickups, and they looked like. It's like, what's that? Is that a Filtertron or something? It's like, no, it's a regular humbucker with a different cover. I think they were doing that ages ago. Dave says, have you tried Tone X by IK? I have, but I still haven't gotten a handle on it. So I got to do that, and I'm going to do that the week after NAMM. That was my plan. Just get into the week after NAMM. Got so much to do. I finished the Karsten's amp demo this week and put that out. Maybe you guys saw that. If you want to talk about that at all, I can fill you in on that. That was fun. Really cool, big, fat sounding, very gainy 20-watt amp. What else did I do? I did the video for the 6505 module, which is really great sound for metal and hard rock and stuff for the Synergy stuff. So both those videos came out this week, and I had fun making those. I did. What else have we got here? Let's see. What are you guys talking about? Do you like the Strandberg guitars? I've very little experience with them. The only time I've been able to pick them up was over in Japan when they were first coming out and stuff. I remember seeing them in stores over there, and I picked them up, and I thought the neck was so odd to me. But people obviously liked it, and I've spoken with other players about the neck being, the shape being kind of strange and different, unique, whatever you want to call it, and they're like, yeah, you get used to it. And I'm like, okay, but I've only played them in stores, so I don't know. The idea of a headless guitar is always a little odd to me, because I think there's a lot of tone in the headstock of the guitar, but players get good tones out of them, If you're using tons of gain, or, maybe it doesn't matter as much. I don't know. I'm a little more, Strats and Les Pauls and Tellys. I mean, that's kind of where I come from, and I just like that stuff more than the headless kind of, fan fret guy. But I'm also interested in, and would, like to try one or have one around, or, tempered frets or fan frets. The one guitar with fan frets that I played that was really great was an acoustic, actually. It was a baritone made by, was it Benedetto? Something like that. It was a baritone acoustic with fan frets, and that guitar sounded like a Steinway piano to me. I mean, it was just like the biggest, fattest low end, and it was so inspiring to play. The big, full bass strings with probably like a 27-inch scale, You're like way out here, But it sounded so good, that guitar. It was like a $10,000 custom-made acoustic with fan frets. And if you can find the video on my channel, it was over 10 years ago, I think, that I made that video. But that thing blew my mind. So I got the fan fret thing. Then it's like, oh, okay, it keeps the low strings super taut and more piano-like. I get it, Yes, L. Scott Music says hard cider. That's right. I neglected to mention cider. I like ciders sometimes. It's kind of my go-to in England. But they can get real... after a while, you just feel like, man, if you have two ciders, especially the pints in England, it's probably like 300 calories each at least. You're like, okay, I'm knocking back 600 calories a day of this stuff, this sweet, it can't be great, like, for me. So I kind of tend to, I chilled out on the ciders, I would say, this time in England when I was over there, because, boy, those English guys can drink. It's pretty crazy. Gotta be careful. It's like you only got so much liver and kidneys, right? I don't know. So, yeah, the ciders can be. It's good though. I like them. They sure are tasty. I like them real dry, even cloudy, like the old school. Have you tried a Veritas guitar? What's that? Never even heard of one. I don't know what that is. What do you do to relax? Play guitar? Uh, I like to eat good food and sometimes read and watch a good. I mean, there's so many good shows now that you can get into binging. I just finished Blackbird on Apple, which is just 6 episodes, but it was a cool story. It's based on a true story. I don't know how much embellishment there was, but that was pretty good. It's all about a serial killer, and it was how they try and kind of nail him and make sure he stays in jail, can't get out. It was really good. So I binge on TV shows and stuff. I kind of look forward to that. I mean, like these days, I like to work hard and then I like to go home and just chill and like turn my brain off. But I still love to travel and stuff too. So, can you discuss the Karsten's amp more? Sure. Compared to other amps, SLO Orange, I would say it feels like a cross between SLO and Orange. Like there's a bit of the old school Orange thing going on, but that SLO gain level, right? So it's kind of similar. Do other amps have a headroom or negative feedback that changes the amp as much as the Grace? It did seem to have quite a wide range. It maybe has a greater range than my amp. I'm not sure. Mine's like 27K up to I don't know what, like on the negative feedback, but 100 or beyond. I think on the range on the pot on mine. I'm not sure how wide it is, but it's pretty big. It'll go from being real smooth and quieter, noticeably quieter, to being wide open and much more. And you just got to find your sweet spot, for the sound that you're going for with the negative feedback. If you haven't seen it, I do a pretty extensive, I do an explanation of what negative feedback is and stuff, I guess, in the video, and how it affects the sound of amplifiers. And it's a cool thing to have an adjustable control for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I got a couple super chats I got to grab there. I'm going to do that. Happy Easter to everybody just joining. Is there a 6v6 brand that has an EQ or more mids that sounds more like an EL34? I think the 6v6s that we use in the PT15, which are JJs, they're known to be one of the most robust and solid 6v6s ever made. Some people think they tend to sound more like a 6L6. So I'm no expert I don't claim to be an expert in 6v6s or anything. I think, they're more, they probably have more headroom and are a little bit more stout sounding, a little bit more full sounding and stuff than maybe the EHs and the 6v6s of yore that were a little more softer and tend to whatever was going in, G's or whatever, Philips, whatever they were putting in Fender Tweed Deluxes of the day. These ones, the JJs, I know will handle a much higher plate voltage than a lot of vintage and newer ones that are out. So the JJ's kind of like maybe the only choice for certain amps, and we like it in my amp because they're just real robust but as far as sound goes, just in general, to me, a 6v6 tends to grind up in not a dissimilar way to an EL34. They're a great tube kind of across the board. I first noticed in my Jim Kelly amp that, at least that's got a lot to do with the design of the amp too, but the range across the volume is really great. 6L6s, not traditionally known as a tube that, for distortion, or an EL34 will grind more through the mids and kind of have a very distinct, cool sound, whereas a 6L6 is maybe better in an amp with a bigger bottom and top and kind of where you don't drive the tube as hard and you don't want it to distort as much. This is tradition, right? It's kind of like when we think of Fender Twins and amps that ran 6L6s. A 6V6, I don't know how electronically similar, but when we consider that Fender used them in their smaller amps, right? The Princetons and stuff, and you turn up a Princeton and that sound, as opposed to, say, a Marshall, where you got your baby 20-watt Marshalls, those are EL84s, and then you got the big, which an EL84, as I understand it, is kind of like, I was talking about this with somebody this week, it's kind of supposed to be like a miniature EL34, really, and not a dissimilar sound. They're more mid-range, it seems like, and less lows and stuff, so, I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but I guess my answer is that the 6v6 that we use is, we choose it more for longevity and robustness and ability to stand up to high plate voltages than anything, I can't say as I've done a back-to-back with that tube and an EH in my amp or anything like that to hear the difference in tone. I just know that we need to use the one that we use because of its ability to handle play voltage and stuff. Who's your biggest solo artist on the Sideman roster that I've played with? I mean, Don Henley, I guess. He's the, one of the Eagles. It's just he's probably the best known worldwide name, I guess, that I've probably played with. I think probably hands down, Let's see. I got super chats to get to there. I'm not going to forget those. I will grab those. Have you heard the ADA plugin? What is it? I didn't know about it. Although now you're kind of, a little bit of memory. ADA preamp plugin. I think that's what you must be talking about. Like, is there an MP1 plugin or something? ADA MP1 plugin. Yeah, there is. I have not. Oh, it's Nembrini, eh? Did they make it? That's interesting. They make good stuff. The gear page, there's a thread about it. Yeah, I haven't tried this guy yet. It's a Nembrini plugin. Interesting. Should give it a go. I mean, maybe not. It's interesting because I was talking about that. I think it was Friedman was saying, like, it's not like they sounded great. He was talking about the ADA this week, and it's like, I go, really? That sounded pretty cool, didn't it? He's like, ah. So, it was a moment in time. It was Zach Wilde and I think Paul Gilbert. Didn't Zach Wilde, was he on Metaltronics? Or did he use the MP1 for a time? Didn't Vito Bratta use it? I think Vito Bratta got to really like scratching my... Paul Gilbert for sure, MP1. So I remember a few people. Any stories about Russ Parrish? Wow, you're really taking me back here to... yeah, Russ was one of the first people I ever met in LA, actually. He was a teacher at MI when I got there. And he used to do open counselings and stuff. And he was, I think, 17. He was younger. He's a year younger than I am. So he was 17. I was like 18 or 19. Maybe he was 18 and I was 19. And he was like ripping on guitar, He used to be Paul Gilbert's roommate. I'm not sure people know that. But they had an apartment, I think, on Yucca in Hollywood and lived there for a time, I think. And he had a band with Paul called The Electric Fence. That used to do covers and stuff, and it was like a trio. It was the drummer from Racer X. Sorry, the singer from Racer X played drums, as I remember. I might be making all of this up because this is 30 plus years ago memories, but I seem to remember this. The drummer was the singer from Racer X in The Electric Fence, and they were trio, yeah, mainly covers and stuff. There's a super chat from Jason. Why? Oh, do you prefer 10.8 millimeter saddles or narrow 10.5 on Strat trims? Building a super Strat, concerned with strings close to the edge of... Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, depending on the width of the neck, if it's a 1 5/8 width, like a narrow neck, the strings can fall off the edge. I mean, I have that on a few guitars where it's just like, the black Strat I have with... a Floyd on it with the tortoiseshell guard, a really cool looking one. That's kind of the kit guitar. That guitar has that. It's got a narrower nut, and the strings are quite close to the edge of the neck. So, if you can avoid that, it's also about the way the frets are dressed. So, if you round the edges of the frets too much, it can get it's a fine line. I would be concerned about it. Yeah, it's definitely a concern. If there's a way to, mate a neck to a body and look at the bridge and put a couple of E-strings through and stretch them out and look approximately at how you're doing, on that. Because it's so neck dependent is what it is, It really is neck and fret dependent. So, yeah. Thomas says, I met you when you played in Dartford a few weeks ago. Yeah, I remember that. In the Classic Rock Show. Are you planning on coming back again next year? I mean, yeah, I always want to do it. It's really fun. They've become my friends, It's like playing in a band with your friends. And there's no rock stars. It's like more like just a group of buddies, but we play all these great songs. So it's like we're playing cover songs, but it's like on a pretty high level with a great crew and you know, the sound and everything, and there's a lot of people that turn up to see it. So it's like it's an interesting gig. I think I'm still trying to get my head around it, to be honest. You know, but it's really fun, and so I always want to go do it. I mean, we have so much fun. We just get on the bus after and eat food and have a couple drinks and laugh and turn on the tunes, and everybody passes the iPod around and plays stuff, and we, you know, somebody always ends up, you know, making a fool of themselves or something, and it's really funny. It's all good. It's like it's really good times. So sometimes it's me that makes a fool of myself. Todd there with a super chat. Thoughts on Mick Mars and Motley? Oh, I think it's, you know, is there anything else that's developed? Do you mean like him leaving and John 5 taking over? Is there more news or something that's happened? I haven't heard anything. I mean, I think it's like he's an older guy, you know. I think Mick was like mid or late 30s when they got signed. So think about that. Like, must have been in 80, 81, you know, 80 probably. 79, 80, something like that. So that's 40 years ago. So, right? So is he like 80 almost? Like, he's late 70s for sure. I'm going to guess he's like, somebody go do the, you know, how old is Mick Mars? But, well, I'll just do it. What the hell? How old is Mick Mars? Oh, he's only 71. I would have thought he was 77 or something like that. I was going to say 77, but I was way off. 6 years off. So, okay, he couldn't have been that old. He must have been 30 or 31 or something when they got signed. Right? Around 80, 81, something like that. I'm not the best at math. That's why I'm a guitar player, the high school education. But anyway, so my point, give the guy a break, you know. It's like he's put in it's time, you know, if he feels with his physical ailments and stuff that he's dealt with for many years, that it's time to retire and stuff. Let him do that. Let the other guys go on the road and have a good time. And John seems like the right guitar player to that, you know, he fits the bill. He's known Nicky for a long time and stuff, I think, and just kind of works, you know. So, is the Five for Fighting tour dates up? Yeah, if you search for, this is the tour I'm doing this summer. If you just search for Last Summer on Earth tour, that's the name of it. It's a Bare Naked Ladies tour. You'll see the dates. We are only on from the 28th of June or so onward, which is, I think the first show for us is Alabama. So unfortunately we miss LA, like they play the Greek and stuff, I think the week before. But it's Semisonic is the band that'll be opening for them then. And then the next week we start in Alabama. We do like Alabama, Florida, and Atlanta and stuff, and then all the way up the East Coast and into the Midwest and stuff, and a bunch of dates for about the next 3.5 weeks, something like that. So, yeah. So we start, I think it's June 28th through something like July 21st, actually. Yeah. Thoughts on Jazz Masters? Never owned one. Really like them. Would like one actually at some point because I think they're cool. There was a vintage Jazz Master that popped up around 95 or so in a music store in Monrovia, California. Not too far from Pasadena. And it was a great store that occasionally had some vintage pieces. And this was a 65 Jazz Master that was an under the bed thing. It was beautiful. It was such a great guitar, and it was $1,500. And I wanted it, and I just couldn't come up with the $1,500. I tried to figure it out, and it's like, ugh. And it was kind of a, you know, it's a great mid-60s Fender, obviously, but it was not like a guitar that I would probably use all the time. So it was all about being practical for me then, and it just wasn't practical, I guess, but yeah. Oh, the fella that asked a question before was asking something about Winger too. Did I see? I just saw a little bit that they put out a new song and video and stuff, which is cool. That Kip Winger, he looks timelessly young, doesn't he? That's cool, man. Gotta get out there and rock. Okay, moving down through the chat here to some different. Sorry for the extremely long question. Says Olivia, but do you have any advice on a Fender Strat and Fender speaker? Because my speaker screams a lot. It's awful. Screams? Sounds like it needs some benzodiazepines or something. I don't know. I would say that you should take it to a tech. Have some people listen to it and see what they think. Turn it up and have them suggest. Maybe a store that you trust with an amp tech, and make sure the amplifier is functioning properly. First off, and then if it's just the speaker you don't like the sound of, or maybe it's something else, get some suggestions. You need a little more hands-on, I think, second opinion kind of thing. Happy Easter to you and everyone, says Bradley, Stereo Guitar Amplification. Thanks, man. Happy Easter out there, folks. We got 300 people online. Easter stragglers. Good to see you all. What is your favorite drum program to use when you make your demo videos? Superior Drummer 3. Also great is Easy Drummer, whatever the latest version. I think there's a 3 out of that as well. Or maybe it's 2. It's just a simpler version of the same thing, essentially. It works really great. Other ones I use, too, a drum plug-in for Contact Player called Butch Vig Drums, which is fantastic. That's the drum sound you hear on my Grace demo at the beginning. That kind of dry, almost drum machine-ish sound is the Butch Vig plug-in. And I'll augment that later in that tune. There's a mixture of Superior Drummer and Butch Vig. So I'll mix it up. I sometimes still use Steven Slate drums. I sometimes use Logic Drummer. But mainly I would say it's Easy Drummer and Superior. How do you find the effects in the Boss tube amp expander? Pretty good. They basically sound like Boss, SD3000 or that style of delay. And, I just use a little bit of reverb sometimes on some patches with it. And can you run 2 delays in series? I don't think so. I don't think it's quite that sophisticated. Maybe, but I don't think so. It's pretty simple. And you can really sort of only have 10 presets, which you can recall via MIDI, which I did during the show. So it's a simple affair as far as effects go. If you just need a few delays for solos and a little bit of room sounds and some reverb, you're good. It'll cover you for that, and some preset EQs and stuff maybe. But it's not, I wouldn't say, like by today's standards, a real full-blown effects processor. It lets you do different routing of things and stuff. It's like basic delays and reverbs. What's the minimum quality of audio interface you'll work with? Yeah, the Focusrite stuff, I don't know that much about it. Britt uses it actually for recording drums and stuff. Seems okay. The mixer's a little finicky. I'm a UA guy these days, pretty much, as far as my recording interfaces. I mean, they've been very good to me, and they made a rock solid interface that just never hiccups when it comes to, like, I used to have all kinds of problems, and this might have been like more based around just FireWire technology and stuff back in the day. These are, obviously we've come a long way with Thunderbolt and. But I used to have lots of, all of a sudden pops and crackles and crap, and you have to reboot, and just things would happen with interfaces. That hasn't happened since I moved to the 8P, then now the X8P that I have, and I've got an X8P and an 8P ganged kit together. And I would recommend, a good interface is like the heart of your studio, really. So it's kind of the most important thing. And over lots of sort of esoteric outboard or like mic pre's and things, if you've got a good interface like the UA that you can then use some of the virtual pre's in, which sound great, you might not need anything else, So it's worth the, I would say a couple good microphones and a good interface and some good monitors are like, really key to knowing what's going on and being able to record properly. Those are the most important things in your studio: the interface, the monitors, and a couple of good microphones for when you got to mic things. You want my mic choices for, like, all around. If you just had to have 2, I would say a 57 and a 4050 from Audio-Technica. That's my large diaphragm jobby. There's other ones too. I mean, I love this Lewitt that I have up here. It sounds really good. There's lots of mics you can get from Shure, the KSMs and stuff, but just a good large diaphragm condenser and a great dynamic, good interface. great pair of monitors is so important for studio. It's worth it. Power amp emulator pedal that does his advertising all analog. Axiom Effects PAE1. That's interesting. Power amp emulator, and it's all analog. So you could use it with something like a like an Ethos pre maybe, or what other kind of any guitar preamp pedal that then you want to run into and be able to get a little bit of it. That's interesting. I mean, what do you run it into though? Like if you're, I'm interested. Say, what's your rest of your rig previous username? Like, what preamp do you use, and then what are you coming out of this power amp emulator into? Like speaker simulation, and then going direct or something? I wonder, because maybe that'd be on a pedal board if you got a preamp pedal, and then the power amp emulator, and then like an IR box, like something like the one from Two Notes, the little Cab M or something, and then you're going into a PA or direct or whatever. That could be interesting. Yeah. Modern Vintage says, is the Grace a tighter amp or more loose? I would say it's actually more loose, but it's not even really, it's just big. When you've got that, there's a lot of full bass in the preamp, and when you've got that much bass, it's only going to be so tight, because that's just a matter of, but it's not really loose sounding either, it's just big, in the same way that a big muff is big. It sounds like you've got a tube amp that's kind of like doing a big muff thing, is what the Grace sounds like to me. It's like, a great big full distortion that if you were hitting a muff and you were used to that for your dirty rhythm tone, this would, somebody said it sounds like a diesel in the comments, and I thought maybe, I've only played through diesels a little bit, like the classic Channel 3 on a VH4 or whatever. I sort of know what it sounds like, so I guess I could hear that, but it's it's not an amp for like tight, fast metal or something, but it's a little more like, I could see if you're like playing alternative or maybe desert stoner rock, big, old school Caius or Queens or Fu Manchu or that kind of thing seems really great for that. So, what's my favorite amp sim? There's lots of good ones out there. My PT100 sim is really great. It's now available off, like, you don't have to get the UA version. You can get it for native, and it works great through Plugin Alliance or Brainworks. So I love that for like a 3-channel thing. I know how to make it work and sound great. I also really like the Friedman Dirty Shirley from them is really good. What are other ones that comes to mind? There's very few AC30 ones out there, so the Nembrini AC30 I think is terrific for that. I got to give credit to Neural DSP. Everything they've done with the, all of their archetype plugins are fantastic. If you want the Crystal Cleans, the Corey Wong one, all the way through to Gojira one, just killer. Really, really, really good, and they're so simple and easy to use, and they just sound great. So. Yeah. Do you like playing with all members just using in-ears on stage? I am trying to introduce this setup with my bandmates. I'm not an in-ear guy, but a lot of people love them, and I don't want to, I'll use them if that's what's the only thing that I can use. I'll use them and I'll make it work, and I'll be fine, and I can dial it in and make it and be happy. But I'm not. I like playing with, as Dave Navarro said a while ago on Tone Talk, and I thought it was the best kind of reason that I like to play without them, is like I like to hear some of my guitar coming from back there from the amp. I like to hear some of my guitar coming from up here, the PA. I like a little bit down here coming at me in front, and that's just my experience of guitar on stage and how I like it and how I grew accustomed to it and used to it and what I still like. So the second I go like this and it's all right here, that's not as much fun for me. So, and if you're all singing, it's great for vocals. Whether or not it saves your ears is arguable, I think. It depends it's totally dependent on how loud you turn that pack up, because some people are probably blasting their ears and not even realizing it, and other people aren't. So, but yeah, I like to be able to talk to people on stage, which when you do this, I can't understand you, you know, that kind of thing. And not being able to hear the crowd loud enough is a big detriment for me. I don't like that. But people love them, though. A lot of people love in-ears. It was always a tough one for me. I use my ASIs when I want to, because they've got mics in them, and I can blend in I can make them basically sound like I don't have in-ears in. Has anybody tried the Ibanez Pentatone preamp? I heard a little bit about that. Curious what people think. Yeah, me too. What do you think about EL84? Love them in certain amps. You know, they can sound really good. I love them in AC30s. It's the only way to go in those. For home recording, how do you deal with latency? I set my, I use Thunderbolt, and I set my buffer to 64 or 128, and I probably have 4 or 5 milliseconds of latency, and it doesn't bother me at all. Just set the buffer low. You gotta have a good fast computer, but these days, most computers are, I mean, if you've got a computer made in the last 10 years, you should be okay. You know, as computers got more and more and faster and advanced and stuff, it's like they can handle audio like nobody's business, you know. Now they can handle, like, you know, multiple streams of like 4K video all happening at once, which is way more intense than audio from, you know what I'm saying. Let's see. That says 5150s or 6L6. We're back on talking about tubes here in the tonal. Yeah, well, the 6L6 is great for a high headroom power amp where you're not distorting the power amp much, which you're not really in a 5150 or an SLO. You know, they're quite... If you watch my video on why old school power tube distortion is the best distortion or whatever, I can't remember, but you can find it on my channel. Search that, like Pete Thorn power tube distortion, and the video will pop up. I did a video on like where I'm actually like miking you can hear the transformers in like my old Plexi, and then also in the SLO, and when cranking them up quite loud. And at Plexi, it's like you can hear the transformer just buzzing away and the voltage going and collapsing. Like literally, I'm just talking about the sound coming out of the top of the amplifier, you know, the whines buzzing away and stuff like that. Yeah, and you don't hear that in an SLO. And the reason is because it's like the amps are they're engineered to have a lot more headroom, and you're not really like nailing the power section in the same way. All the tone is getting generated in the front end of these super high gain, both a 5150 and an SLO, you know. So as far as the distortion sound of a tube, I mean, a 6L6 probably makes a better high headroom, sort of more linear, like whatever, power amp to amplify what you've generated mostly in the preamp of an amp like an SLO or a 5150, or pretty much any high gainer, you know. But I like, if we're going to talk about like distorting a power tube and getting, you know, that, I guess I just like the sound of old Marshalls and stuff, which is the L34s. That's my favorite sound. So try the free neural amp modeler and check out YouTuber Emmy's free amp captures. He has a 67 plexi pack. Are you talking about for neural? Or for Kemper? I just wonder. Can you describe grind and grunt in more detail with examples? I associate grunt with the orange sound, but the term may be close to Marshall bark. Geez, I don't know, man. Talking about sound. It's like, to me, oranges have a lot more fullness to them than Marshalls of the similar era. You know, like an early 70s Marshall Super Lead is way leaner, and they bark, and then an orange has more... They were just always bigger sounding. Like, I don't know if it's what's going on in the preamp, the amount of low end in the preamp and stuff, but they always sound more like looser and bigger and fuller and the whole 9 yards, you know, compared to Marshalls. So, yeah. One of my all-time favorite, the Marshall Studio 15 had 6V6s. Yeah, I remember those. I've kind of often thought about buying one, and then you get a romantic sort of thing with the gear that you grew up with. Oh, I should get one. And then, like, you might get it and it'd be like, eh. And I actually heard a couple videos of them online, and I was like, I don't think I need one of those. I think I got it covered here already. But But I love the idea of the little Marshall Studio 15, you know. I love those Marshall combos of the day, because when I was a kid, it was like maybe that was what I could get, you know, like a JCM 850 watt 112 combo. I was just like, that's so cool. Like maybe I could get that, or you know, it seemed like attainable. Like I work all summer and you know, or something, you know, or a Studio 15, you know, was a 12, 15 watt. That's okay. Maybe that's even cheaper because it's 15 watts. You know, seemed attainable. And I just kind of lusted after that stuff. Like, I never got one. The amp I ended up with was a MOSFET 100 head and a 410 cabinet. So I guess technically sort of more amp than a 50 watt 112. But did it sound as good? I don't know. It did sound good, though. I seem to remember really liking the sound of my Marshall MOSFET. And that's another amp that I've often thought about going and buying again to see if I liked it. But then it seems silly. So... yeah. PQ3, that's that Furman EQ, right? In front of an MP1 is a glorious metal tone. That was yeah, I seem to remember guys using those. And Nuno used an MP1. He did, that's true. Yeah, I guess at Nuno, I'm pretty sure the guy from White Lion, Vito, and Paul Gilbert. Those were the ones I remember really using the MP1. Sure, there's others, but I got my old... I've been charging my mouse because my mouse ran out of battery, and then I got another one. Let me see if is this one working. Is my mouse working? Maybe connected. There we go. Got it. I got this old... You guys will laugh if you're computer guys, but I got one of these old ones with that awful gray button on it. That's the roller wheel, you know. This is like literally like 15 years old. That's my backup mouse here if my other one Bluetooth dies, and they suck those the little... Anyway, enough about that. Tone Dragon says, have a great Easter, everybody. I agree. Have a terrific Easter. Hope you're having fun out there, whatever you're doing. If you're hanging out and watching this, hanging with your fams or hanging alone, whatever it is, let's have a good day. Have you played with any guitar players that surprises you at how good they really were? Yeah. You know, there's mostly pros are kind of like that. Like when you get together and you realize like the depth of, because you might only know their recorded work or something, and then you might be like, oh, they can do this too or that too. I remember one that really blew me away was... not that, you know, I didn't have any reason to think that he wouldn't be great, but Dweezil Zappa, when I sat down with him for a minute and he picked up a guitar and was playing, I was like, and he was showing me kind of like some stuff of how he was, you know, learning his dad's music and stuff and how he played it. And I was like, holy, he can really like sweep pick and do all this crazy stuff that I didn't realize that he had under his fingers. And he was like, man, you really got like chops like crazy. And he was like, I basically just practiced guitar for like 5 years or whatever straight to be able to go out and do the Zappa play Zappa thing and stuff. And so he was like really, and he seems like a disciplined kind of guy and stuff like that. So he was one that really knocked me out with his skills on the guitar. Who else? How about Steve Martin on the banjo? That's pretty amazing. Oh, Mick is suing Motley. Is that right? I didn't hear that. We were talking about Mick Mars, Motley Crue, and somebody was saying, what do I think about the situation? I hadn't heard any new update. I just thought maybe we were talking about John 5 touring with them and stuff, but I didn't hear that he's suing them. That's weird. It'll probably get resolved out of court and whatever. So, oh boy, old rock guys suing one another. Sue everybody. Sue everybody. Do you consider having to change a nut on a 3 to 10K guitar due to bad spacing? It happens. Even on the best guitars, you can get a nut that just isn't quite, you know. I mean, I've had Sirs that I haven't been happy with it on, and then I'll take it to John, and he'll go, let me take a look at it. And he'll go, this could be, you know, and he'll go do it. It happens, even on theirs. I'm not saying that that's a common thing I've had happen, but I have had it happen. Les Paul, my, Les Paul Custom wouldn't stay in tune like for a time. And I had taken it to a tech that I really like, and actually, he does good refrets and everything. It's great. He had done the nut on it. And then when I was in Japan, I was just having problems with the D string constantly sticking, and the guitar was always going out of tune. I thought, this sucks. And I took it into a store called Hoochie's in Shibuya. It's awesome. A great guitar shop. And they've got a tech in there, and he cut a nut for it out of bone, and it was just like a different guitar after that. It was like it just needed a little attention on the nut. So it's such a... And they can go south over time, That's the other thing. Like, not even that long. Like a year of playing, and all of a sudden you're getting buzzing on an open string, and it's like... And maybe that's because they cut the nut really low to begin with, and it was perfect, but then the string rubs back and forth for 8-9 months, a year, and there's just enough... because I feel like Tusk in graphite nuts and stuff, especially, they wear a little bit over time, and I noticed a change over a year, 2 years, 3 years. All of a sudden, I'm getting a little buzzing on the open strings, the open low strings. So, yeah, so that's the thing, and it's just, I don't think it's something that I would make a big deal about. I mean, if a guitar's got a warranty and you've just bought it and there's a nut issue, you should be able to take it and have them address it, and they shouldn't charge you, but. What's it cost to get a new nut? $60 or $50 or something on a guitar. It's not something I make a big deal out of. I'll just go get it done. And like when you say unacceptable, it's like I'd just be like, well, this one was made on a Monday or whatever. I guess somebody didn't, or on a Friday. On a Friday, that's right. It just didn't. It's not up to snuff. Can you just fix it and then move on? What else we got here? Super chats to get to. I'm going to do those. I promise. I see them up there. They're going to disappear, but I'll get to them. His gripe appears to be they're punishing him financially and percent of interest in the band to 5% from 25 for not touring physically. That's interesting. They'll probably meet somewhere in the middle. I mean, if he's not actually going out and he can't tour and they need to pay somebody else a lot of money, which they are, okay. I get it, but then it sounds like a settle out of court kind of thing, It's unfortunate it has to go there, though, and they couldn't just be like, all right, we'll work it out, I just never understand, man. These old bands are on top of the friggin' world, It's just like selling out stadiums and making money and stuff, and then the fighting is what I don't get, There's I don't, like, it's such a human nature, like, it's just when things always have to come to, like, these... Like, nobody wants to be in court, man. It's such a waste of money. Like, when I see the lawsuits with different businesses, the music business or the music instrument business or different things where people end up taking each other to court, and it's just the lawyers that end up with the money. And at the end of the day, you guys should have just sat down and hashed it out and been cool, Just hash it out and don't... It's just such a waste of... You can just spend years of your life caught up in litigation and like worrying about this crap. And it just, one day, you die and that's it. And it's just like, was all that worth it? Like all that stress that I felt over arguing over 3% or whatever, or over, and I just wanted to be right because it was what was right. And I know sometimes you got to do it, but doesn't it suck? It's just like, it sucks. It's like, just be friggin' nice to, I don't know, one another. People, be good to one another, I would think after all the time that Mick has spent with them, touring in the last, whatever, like, and doing the whole last year and stuff, it's like, you would hope that he'd saved enough money to be able to be, like, cool for, like, okay, I'm old guy now, I'm not gonna, I don't know, like, but... I get that what's fair is fair, and if you've got an interest, I mean, but obviously he shouldn't have 25% interest in the band if he's not touring anymore. If the four of them are out there all doing it, you each got each guy. That's cool. It's good to know it's a four-way split, that the 25%, that sounds like Nicky, because I don't think it used to be that way. But it sounds like for these last tours, maybe that's what they've been doing, is each guy's equal. But if you're not on the road at all now, you got to pay John. So, I don't know. It's only fair. Thoughts on 432 tuning? That's E flat, basically, right? I mean, that's Van Halen. It's so much 80s rock, and so although they were sort of in between many times. E flat and E, 432 and 440, I guess. It just had a meaner rock and roll tone. You know, when you tuned down a half step, there was something a little darker about it that was really cool, but wasn't all the way to D, you know. Motley was D. Motley tuned down to D. It's like, you know, whole step down, standard tuning. That was their, you know, Dr. Feelgood and all that. Kind of cool. Let's see here. Iron Man 2 or Power Station, which sounds best on low volume? They're both really good. I mean, to me, the Power Station is a little more transparent in my experience, but the Iron Man 2, for the type of attenuation, it's a full-on attenuator, not a load and reamp. Different design. I thought it was quite good. So I'm so far back in the chat here, and I'm missing super chat. So I'm going to do these super chats and then move down, guys. Let's see. I have a Sir Classic Pro with SSV and V70s. Okay, I know the factory pickup heights, but do you have a preferred pickup height? I just go by ear, honestly, and I'll tend to set the treble side always a little higher, and then the bass side a little lower, because the bass strings are they have more energy, and you know that tends to even it out a little more. So I'll tend to listen clean usually because you can hear the volume much better, you know, when you're not, you know, overdriving the amp, aka compressing the amp. You know, so I'll listen clean and listen to the volumes and try and balance so that in all three positions it balances quite well. Now, a bridge humbucker is always going to be louder. It just is. And I like the bridge humbucker to not be too high. A lot of people set their bridge humbuckers really low these days. And maybe it's superstition or something, but I don't like them too low. Like, I like them kind of medium high, a bridge humbucker, just because I feel like the sound is more focused or something. Like, more than just volume, I feel like you lose, I don't know if it's punch. Maybe that's the word. But when the humbucker's too low, it just feels like, you know, a bridge humbucker. I don't know. I feel like it's a little more articulate when it's higher. And maybe that's just a matter of a little more output or volume because it's closer, the pole piece is closer to the string. But I like them kind of medium high. Sometimes I set them a little too high, and then I get a little overzealous sometimes live, and I'm like muting the guitar with my hand, and I hear the high E string hitting the pickup. Ding! You know, and that drives me crazy. So then I'll try and find that where I can back it down a little bit and still not have it affect my muting technique too much, you know, but still get it to the height about where I like it, you know, articulation wise and all that. What age did you start playing guitar? I was 10, I think. If you had to choose between acoustic and electric, which would you choose? Electric, for sure. That's what I started on. And I always recommend to students, and like I used to work in music stores when I was a kid too, you know, and I also taught, and parents would ask that question, should I get them an acoustic? I should probably get them acoustic to learn on, right? I'd be like, well, not if they like Metallica as their primary influence, you know, or whatever. It's like if they're into, you know, playing hard rock guitar, they don't have to start on acoustic. I didn't. I got an electric guitar as my first guitar. I learned a little bit technically on my sister's nylon string that she had as a rental from school. You know, in the few months leading up to me getting my first guitar. But my first guitar technically was a Hondo Strat and a little trainer amp and an overdrive pedal. So like, and that's all I played on. That's like Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he learned on electric guitar and didn't even own an acoustic well into Van Halen's success. So, you know, that old thing about having to start on acoustic, I don't think really, you know, holds true. But if you want to play acoustic, if you're no more on influences Ed Sheeran, you should probably get an acoustic and a looper pedal and a PA. Yeah. UA have a new line of affordable interfaces that seem cool. We were talking about interfaces a little while ago. That's right. They do. I think the Volt series, is that what they're called? I do believe. Yeah. Steven's recommending the Fryat PS100 for attenuation, load reamp technically. So good, use my vintage 50-watt Marshall, whisper volume, and it's superb. I agree, they're great. If it doesn't sound exactly the same as the amp cranked, it's very close, and how would you know? Because it's so quiet now and versus being earth-shatteringly loud, right? So in that said, in testing where I've mic'd things and then volume matched them and listened, so as close as possible I find the Fryat to be very transparent. It's a really good way to attenuate your amplifier and get it to the volume that you want, as well as be able to add effects and stuff post in the effects loop. Question for Pete and the chat. Any good drum loop pedals that don't sound like toy beats? I like the... oh, man, I did a video for one. Search Pete Thorn drum pedal, and you will find it. What's it heck is it called? I don't remember what it's called, but it's a little drum box pedal. I did it in my old condo, I remember. That's where I filmed it. And it was cool, and I did a song to the drums in the pedal. And you can hear me changing the pedal to the different beats and everything like that, like on the fly as I did the song. It sounds really good. Oh, Beat Buddy. I didn't read the whole comment, and there it was right in the comment. I'm sorry. Beat Buddy. That's it. The Beat Buddy. Beat Buddy. Oh, my God. Happy Easter. Devin says, Happy Easter. SSS Strat or HSS Strat. I like them both. Which one a little more? Well... You need to look no further than my signature guitar to know. If I can only have one, I'm going to go that route. And do a series parallel switch in the tone pot for the bridge pickup to get me somewhere close to the output of a single coil. If I can only have one. That's the answer to that question. You're saying, don't know how there's much difference between those two, Iron Man and the Iron Man and the power station. Well, they're very different in the way that they get to the end goal, which is reduced volume. An Iron Man is a reactive attenuator, so it's sucking juice off the signal coming out of the amplifier and then passing through some still to the cabinet, right? And it goes in between the amp and the cabinet. And that's how it achieves. There's no power amp inside the Iron Man or a load per se. I mean, it'll load, I think, but it's more of a its goal is to pass some of the signal through to the amp's cabinet. Whereas with a power station, you can load all the way down to line level with it, and then it's got a tube power amp built in that's then reamping up to whatever level you want. So it's a kind of a very different way of going about the same end result. And I tend to think the load reamp design, they tend to work a little more transparently for whatever reason. I just think it's a difficult thing to introduce something in between the amp and the speaker that's taking some of the juice from the amplifier but letting some of it through still to the speaker and not have that affect the sound more than the load reamp. With the load reamp, you're loading all the way down to line level with a load that's actually simulating a cabinet. So the amp thinks it's plugged into a cabinet still. And then you're then got a fairly linear power amplifier that's reamping the signal back up to whatever volume you want. So in a way, you can view one as sort of trying to trick the amplifier into thinking that it's still plugged into the same thing that it's not. Whereas the other one is sort of like a spigot that you're turning off or whatever. You know, imagine dialing back a tap and you're only letting some of the signal through the speaker, but you're still trying to retain the tone. It's just a different way of going about the same end result. And in my experience, yeah, the power station is sort of the most transparent. But the Iron Man, really good too. And I did a video of it, and I show it in the video. You can watch my video on both, and you can listen to my volume match clips in both videos, and you can hear how much difference. I probably use some of the same amplifiers. So you can compare in those videos like how close you think that the sound is to the full volume bypassed sound with each unit. Yeah, okay. Have you been able to try a Bray yet? You know what, I haven't. I forgot. I haven't connected with him yet, really, but I would like to. And it's just so much to do, dude. It's just... I've got a before NAMM this week. I mean, I'm working on this Cloudburst video. I want to get something done for them. And then I've got 3 more videos I'm supposed to film before I go to the show on Thursday. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do all that. And then more to do the week after. More. There's just only being one guy is really tough around. Like as far as like trying to get everything done. Like there's so many projects to get done because there's so much stuff out there. Like you guys ask me, have you tried this guitar? Have you tried these tubes? Have you tried this speaker? And I'm like, no, I haven't checked that one out. No. And I like try a lot of stuff, but it's like there's not enough time to try everything and get everything done. It seems so. Anyways, quality problems. But any tips for a fuzz that picks up some radio stations? Oh, I thought you meant like you know any fuzz that'll pick up some cool radio stations, so I can get some cool sounds coming through my amp that are unexpected. I don't know about that. That's a I've had that issue before with certain pedals. You turn it on and all of a sudden you're getting radio, but I don't know how to solve it, to be honest. It's a Friedman question. Maybe some sort of isolation, but yeah, it's part of the charm is that extra bit of music coming through your amplifier that you didn't expect. Look at it like somebody sitting in with the band. Turn it into a positive. Kevin says, bought a Pod HC500X, new to amp sims running direct. Wish me luck. Good luck. Good luck, my friend. Have fun with it. Let's see. Do you wear like earplugs? Sounds like you don't. I generally don't. I've got some of those like high definition plugs that I'll wear sometimes when I go to, but I don't go to a lot of shows anymore, to be honest. I'm not out in a lot of loud environments that often. So I don't find a lot of use for earplugs. Yeah, I'm generally not in like loud places a lot. So I don't wear them on stage, that's for sure. I just turn down more. Luckily, like, take the Classic Rock Show tour, for instance. The drums are far stage right, and I'm far stage left in another corner. So I'm so far away from them that I can play with the drums on stage and they don't sound loud to me. You know, it's like I've actually got some in my wedge coming out in front because it's like I'm quite far from the. So, you know, the only time where I'm like, okay, I've got to put something in my ears is if I'm situated like stage wise close to a drummer and there's a crash cymbal that's like, you know, anywhere from, you know, if it's like right, like the Michel Polnareff tour I did years ago. I remember I was like right in front of Kurt Biscayne and his crash cymbal was literally like probably like 2.5 feet behind my head, you know? So it's like, I wore in ears the whole gig almost because it's just not an option when you're that close to the kit. Yeah. Do you think a compressor handy in a live situation to even the sound? I use them more for the tonal effect rather than trying to even out volumes. You know, I use it more for the feel and the trying to make my cleans feel and push forward in the mix, like, and feel good, almost like they're overdriven. So that's how I do it. But your mileage may vary. Has John ever mentioned preferring Strat bridges set up floating instead of being flush to the body like Mayer does for any reason? You know, it's a different tone. I think the bridge being connected to the body is a sound. There's definitely a bit more fundamental that you get when you do that, I think. I've got guitars set up both ways. My EVH Strat is, you know, the 78 is set up with the bridge decked, as he did. And it's cool, you know, but I will say my old Strat, I have set up my 64, much like the Jeff Beck, which is way forward. It's set up for quite a bit of pull-up, and it actually stays in tune great and works really well like that. And I love the position of the bar when it's, because as you do this, the bar angles down over the pickguard. And so I like the bar being like that, and you can kind of put your pinky around it, and it's just, and do you know that I guess in the patent drawings for the original Fender tremolo, they actually show the bridge set like that in the drawings. So somebody obviously intended it to be that way, whoever, you know, set up like that. But yeah, you could do it a million different ways, you know. There's no right or wrong with that, I don't think. On your SL68, I think you meant, I know your bright cap is switchable, but if you had to pick one, 4700, 500, 100, none other, I would go for the big one, the 4700. It's the one that some people think is ice picky, and yes, it is, but when you turn your Marshall on 6 or 7, it sounds like a Marshall then. There's other ways, too, with a plexi and a big bright cap. You know, you can't really get a usable sound out of them now plugging with a 4700 plugged into the top left input with the volume anywhere below 5. It's just too ice picky and doesn't sound good. It's thin, it's bright, it's not nice, but it sounds stellar on 6 or 7 and an 8 with that bright cap in it, and it's just aggressive and cool and sounds like a Marshall's supposed to. So that's the sound. And then if you want to get a cleaner thing, fuller thing going, just jumper. So plug into the top left, jumper bottom left to top right, turn up the top right input up to like 5, and turn the treble channel now, or volume 1, onto like 1.5 or 2. And you get an amazing sound, actually, like that. So by itself, it would be awfully thin and not nice. Mix in the normal channel though up to 4 or 5. It's an amazing blended, like Hendrixy, killer. Great for clean, great for all kinds of stuff. So that's how you do it, and that's why I would recommend the 4700 bright cap, because you can still get there. You can still get all the range out of the amp. You just got to do it a different way with the jumper and stuff. There's no downside to me. The downside of not having the 4700 is there's no sound quite like it. If you're going to dime the amp like Eddie, doesn't matter. If you're going to put it on 9 or even 8.5, doesn't matter. But anything below that, the bright cap starts to, you get the magic teeth, and now we're talking about that punch where the amp isn't quite as dirty as Eddie had it maybe, but we're talking about Angus and, AC/DC, and like that sound is just, you can't get it without the bright cap. It doesn't sound the same. The amp sounds too smooth. And maybe that's what some people like. The amp is usable without a bright cap all the way across the range of volume 1 if you're only plugged into the top input. An old Plexi will sound good, all the way across the range, and especially with a Strat, it's real nice on the bridge pickup or whatever. You can run the amp anywhere on that range of volume with no bright cap. It's a little dull without any bright cap to me, though, with a humbucker. So 100 PF, which was a JTM 45 value, sounds good across the whole range of the pod as well, with a humbucker or a single coil. Good, I like it, and it's a sound, and it's cool. It's JTM 45 a little more in that thing. But the 70s rock, 80s rock sound, whatever, once they started, they went to that cap in 67 or 68, I think, the 4700, and that was the sound. So, that became that tone. A lot of people think, oh, the amp's unusable when I plug into it. If I turn it up to 3, it sounds awful. And it's like, yeah, but turn it up to 6. Yeah, or 8 or 7. Any opinions on Silverface Basemans? Great, and easy mod platform, and you can make them exactly like the Blackface ones of a year or two earlier. They're terrific amps, and yeah, they're basic. You can probably fix them in the woods. So it's like, yeah, just get one of those, and somebody that knows them. Friedman or Blankenship, he worked on mine. Can do some amazing things to one of those amps. And they're just a terrific amp. Great tube amp. A classic. There's a super chat that I have to get to that I haven't gotten to, and now I'm going to get to. Just recently picked up a Musicom Mark 6. Great unit. How easy is it to program presets, and can you access any pedal on the fly in a live situation? Yeah. Can loops be parallel or series only? I believe so. Yeah. Can you? I'll be A-Bing my Super Reverb in SL67. You can do all that. It's got an ISO transformer, so you can get no ground loop, go into the second amp. You can change the order of the loops. I think you can do everything that you want to do. How easy is it? You got to get into his, the architecture of how he does things a little bit. But he made a great switcher, and the editor is cool. The one thing I wish on the editor, and I think this holds true for a lot of editors for these switching units and pedal switchers and stuff, they're not instant updating with the unit all the time. So in other words, you've got it plugged in USB, and you can program some things on the screen of your computer that you want to happen on the switcher, but they don't happen instantly, as would happen with the editor for, let's say, a Helix or something, right? You got it plugged into your computer, and you change something on the Helix, it happens in the editor. You change something on the editor, it happens in the Helix. They're talking to one another. On these switcher programs, they don't. And so then what you got to do is, like, you'll make a preset in the switcher, and then you got to send to the unit manually, and then it updates into the unit. And any time that you change something, let's say you do a gig, and on the gig you change a couple of your pedals, whether or not the pedal is on or off within a preset, let's say, and you store the state within the preset. If you then plug into the computer with your pedal board, what's on the computer, you have to send that to the computer then for it to recognize it, So I just wish it was more instant, because in practice, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal. In practice, it takes a long time. It's like, that's the one thing. I programmed all my sounds on the Musicom for the Classic Rock Show tour, and it was a multi-day process of like, it was cool having it MIDI'd up to the computer and being able to do it. Because the first time I've ever done it that way. I never did that on the Mark V, or, you know, the MIDI was not as easy on the Mark V. It was like the old MIDI jacks. You'd have to use a MIDI to USB interface and all that crap. So I didn't do that. I waited for this one that's got a built-in dedicated USB. Got into it, and once I learned how it worked, it was cool, but it took a while, you know, to do. Is it easier than doing on the switcher itself? I think so, yeah, but I just wish, you know, there was a way that it would be constantly updating. That's the only thing. Sorry, that's really long-winded about maybe not the most exciting subject, so I'll move on. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. I just recently bought a Buddha baby Buddha. A Buddha baby Buddha. Say that 10 times fast. Buddha baby Buddha. Buddha baby Buddha. Buddha baby Buddha. Buddha baby Buddha. That gives me some sweet power tube distortion, specifically EL84 tube distortion. That's cool. I don't know that much about Buddha amps, other than, you know, PV bought them a while back, and I don't know if they still own them or not, but I remember that. And I don't know if Friedman had a little bit to do with some design, I think, at some point, of some of their amps. I think. Am I making that up? I don't think so. Am I, Dave? Are you here? I had a Marshall MOSFET 100. Didn't like it. Well, it was my first good amp. My first good tool of the trade. I bought this mug in Nashville. On Broadway. In one of those tourist shops. Yeah, I'm pretty far back in the chat if we're talking about the 100 still, the MOSFET 100. There's a super chat. I thought it was a good amp for the time. I remember being pretty happy with it. Like going like, I know I can do better than this, but this is a pretty good amp. Like, basically can enjoy playing this and get gig volume out of it. It was all right. At 16. I was 16. Christmas morning, I got that thing. I remember it sitting in the corner with the wrapping, and I knew what it was. It was sitting there. It was an amp, one of a cabinet, and I was so excited. I remember tearing the, you know, it's good memories. Like, makes me almost a little sad. But anyways, Arthur, I recently discovered one of my amps, my Line 6 DT50. I love that it's like having 4 analog amps. I don't have a Helix, but was told it can interface with one, just like it did with the Pod 500. I believe they have a connection that's links between the two, and then they can talk to one another. Yeah. Hey, man, rock it. Rock your Line 6 DT50. Rock it out. And use the Helix for effects, etc., etc. And as a switcher, do it. And I appreciate the super chat. Rob, how do you set neck relief on your guitars? He says. I set them like barely have relief. I like the neck almost dead straight, but then it'll buzz if it's straight. So you got to have it just a little. But I'll hold the G string at the first fret and at the end of the neck with my thumb, like this. So first fret and then the end of the neck with my thumb. And then I'll look at the G above the 12th fret. Can I push down just a little? And I can. And then I'll look down here. Can I push down even a little less? And I can. And when it's like that, it's about perfect. I mean, and by a little, I mean like I want the string to be floating barely above the, you know what I mean? Because of course it becomes the straight edge now. So if you're touching between those 2 points and you can just push the string down a fraction. I mean, the width of a couple business cards is what I like. The smallest amount of relief. Because I don't mind a little buzz, you know. If I can play light and there's no buzz, and then I hit hard and there's a little fret buzz, you know, that's fine for me. Good enough. Scotty says, Dweezil's a fantastic player. We were talking about players earlier that I say that maybe I didn't know were great, that were really great. I said I sat down with Dweezil once and he played, and I was like, oh my God, he's like really amazing. Got great technique and stuff. So, yeah. Okay. Any update on the GK250ML? No, it's been sitting in Friedman's shop, and unless I prod him, he will never work on it. I know that, so I'll have to prod him. He'll roll his eyes at me and like, oh God, do I have to? And I'll be like, come on, like, I'll buy you sushi or something. And then we'll get somewhere. Any thoughts on the PRS MT15? I've heard it a little bit. Sound pretty cool. Like, that's the Mark Tremonti amp, right? Good, like, little high... He had one of the first little high-gain lunchbox jobbies that was, you know, sort of the precursor to a lot of the other ones, I think. And it seemed good, like, kind of in the modern, you know? Like a clean that'll, you know, you can play clean with a PRS with it, with humbuckers. And then a, you know, burn channel that was modern and stuff. Cool. You know, I don't know. He knows what he's doing. I like Mark. Steven says, Michael Wagner's tone is the Nuno Vito snake tone. Right, snake Sabo, right? From Sabo, from Skid Row. It was a PQ3 and an MP1 into a Marshall cab with 35 watt selections, mic'd and sent to the board through a BBE 802 Sonic Maximizer. Man, that's a lot of the BBE. I remember that thing. People used to put that in the effects loop. Kind of cool. It was kind of cool. Anybody ever try one of those? Like in the effect loop of an amp? Just kind of a clarity box. Kind of neat. I tried one a little while ago because I tried one in the 80s, and I was sort of like, because maybe back then that was, you're right, like I remember the BBE being a thing. And it just kind of, for rock, it defined the amp a little more. Like it's like a little clarity. It was just like an EQ where you took the mud out and maybe added a bit of top end and just made it more in your face. Neat for metal and stuff, maybe. Yeah. Oh, what else we got here? Let's see. Lauren's asking about get with Thomas Blug and get one of his pedal amps to try. Not at all opposed to that. We've talked about it, and I think his intention was to have me make a video of it when he was ready. So, yeah. Steve Perry still gets a cut of Journey's touring revenue. Yeah, that's often an arrangement. You know, with previous members, if they were, depending on their role in the band and how much of an equity member they were, if they're, even when there's fallings out and stuff, there's still contracts. And I believe that there's plenty of situations where people still get paid where you might think, really, that's interesting. Yeah, that's not uncommon. So do you pay John 5 and everything else and then split the net 4 ways? Well, no. I mean, it's probably, I'm sure John 5 is probably a salaried guy. I mean, I don't think they're just going to make him a band member right out of the gate. That's not really that common. Many times when people join a band or, you know, they're replacing somebody, you'll become a salary guy and make your money. And then if you're there for years and years and years and years, or maybe a year or maybe more. I mean, there's the whole Metallica, Some Kind of Monster, you can see where they basically offer, they basically make him a member right out of the gate, right? New bass player. And he's been around for 20 years now. But in the movie, you see that go down and stuff. And that's the discussion that happens anytime there's somebody joining a band, right? Is it going to be like, you know, often it's a salary, or they'll creep in. They'll give you like, you know, a portion of the merch and the live proceeds, but nothing else. You know, that used to be like, and it'll be like, you know, the main guy in the band will have 50% of all of that, and then he'll split the other 50 with the other 4 guys or something, so everybody's getting, you know, 5% of merch and live or something. I mean, I was in a band like that once. You know, the singer gets everything, and then the other dudes all get 5 or whatever, you know, and because there's 4 or 5 other guys, and so it adds up to 25. No, that doesn't make sense. Well, anyway, you know what I'm saying. Once again, I don't do math. So the lawyers get rich, says Cooper. That's right. That's true. Why make the attorneys rich? Yeah. Sambora back to Bon Jovi now. I haven't heard that. I heard he wanted back, but I don't know that it happened. So who knows? There's another one where, you know, what happened when Phil joined, and I don't know. He's a friend of mine. I've never talked to him about his deal. You know, I'm sure he's on salary. I think everybody in Bon Jovi's on salary, to be honest, but I could be wrong about that. I think John is a pretty, like, I am Bon Jovi. Of course he is, But who knows, Now, that said, when you write a song and you get a portion of, Wanted Dead or Alive is definitely a co-write, right? Or whatever. The biggest hits are going to be co-writes. And so, that publishing income and writers and everything that you get, regardless of the deal and the equity that the band brings in from things like T-shirt sales and concert tickets. That's all. There's a number of different income streams, right? So it's an interesting subject. Many times, no two deals are the same. T-Top with the super chat there. Does the Fryette power station have the same issue as boss load with some frequencies becoming unloaded if the depth and presence knob? No, because the load is totally like the power. Its own power amp is completely where the depth and presence are happening. It's totally separate from the load section. So you should be safe loading with the Fryette, no matter what. I think. This doesn't say you're not going to have problems with tubes popping or whatever. I mean, you're still driving an amp hard, so it's always good to remember that. When you're running into something where you're at practice volume or low volume, it's sometimes easy to forget that you're stressing the amp as you would be if you were running it into a cabinet quite loud. So always keep that in mind. That you are burning through tubes and stuff faster. And yeah. So, let's see what else we got here. Let's see here. You guys are talking more about somebody's saying the Motley situation. 25% minus John 5's salary. Basil says, Mick shouldn't have to fund John 5's salary. Yeah, I mean, they should come up with something that's fair, is all I'm saying, for, whatever works that you can negotiate out of court. That's still a lot of money, I'm sure, It's like, give Mick his money. He wrote a lot of those tunes, put in a lot of years and stuff, but I don't think it's at all, 5%. It depends how much 5% is, man. I mean, right? Like, what's your overhead? I mean, maybe 5% of that tour is a lot of money, Maybe it's just like, oh, I'm going to fight. Forget it. It's all good. But evidently he feels not. So maybe it should be 7.5% or 10%. I know something, but common sense says, well, yeah, but if you're an equity member in a business, right? Like many times as you get tenure and you're older and you leave the business, or you're now retired, but you're still on as a consultant or whatever, and you still sit on the board, right? I mean, we can look at it that way, right? And it's like, yeah, give the guy it's almost like a pension or like, I guess, something that where you're still a part of that. It's a business, man. I mean, they're out there making all that money, and he put in a lot of time, and he was a big part of the band. So it's like, he should get something for that, but what's your retirement package, essentially? I view this in a very sort of, I don't know, pragmatic, I don't know. It's no different to me than any other business. So how do you protect your hearing on concerts? I just set the volume on stage, to be honest, at a level that I feel is reasonable. Like many times I'm asking, on the Classic Rock Show tour, we have an amazing monitor guy, Andy Greenwood. He'll tend to set up my wedges loud and clear and punchy, and they sound great. And often I tell him, just bring the whole wedge down. Once I get a mix, it sounds great to me, but he does them good and loud and clear with no feedback and anything. And then I'll be like, just take the whole thing down 3 or 4 dB, the whole wedge, and he'll do that. And certain rooms that you're in, depending on where the ceiling is and how open the room is and what the rest of the stage is like, how close I am to the PA, because a lot of rooms that you play, there'll be flowing PA, and then there'll also be stacks on the side, and the stack will only be 10 feet away from me on some of these, and that stack has a lot of volume coming even just off the back of the cabinets, and you feel the PA on the stage. So balancing your wedge with that for articulation, because that sound of the PA coming and the subs under the stage, and you're getting all this rumble. You need to get a little definition out of the wedges and stuff. but not too much, you know. So trying to, now when there's no PA there, let's say you're in an arena, often then there's nothing. There'll be little front fills all the way across the front of the stage and stuff, but there's no PA stacked on the sides of the stage anymore. It's all flowing, great big flowing PA. Now it sounds kind of quiet on stage. So now you've got your wedge, and it might seem quite loud because it's like, well, I don't need that much volume. I can, you know, I'm not hearing barely any PA. I'm just hearing some reverb from the room and stuff. So now you can bring your wedge down a little bit, and it's just room dependent. So every day I'm trying to listen, and you know, I like my guitar cabinet to be up there on stage, but not annoyingly so or stupid. You know, it's why I use a attenuation device, you know, reamp. I like stage volume, but not, my ears are good. I mean, I don't have any, you know, I don't have maybe a little tinnitus, but like nothing that's debilitating or, you know, and I tend to try and take care of them these days. I like definition, a little volume, you know, I like it to rock, but I don't want it to be stupid, and I don't want to be, you know, tons of ringing all day the next day afterwards, you know. So I try and be cognizant of all that. Okay, it's about 1:37. I'm going to go till around, I've just got to text somebody here, guys, because I'm having it's getting busy this week because of still doing my show, but we'll be done at about 2. Can meet you just after. Just meeting some friends for lunch that are in town. NAMM week coming, and getting busy this week. So lots of people in town, and you know, friends, etc. So anyways, so yeah, I'll go till about 2. I didn't even start till about noon today. So ever have nasal infection or allergies affect your hearing? I mean, yeah, sure. I hate that. I mean, when you get a cold and you're, sure, we've all had that, right? Where you just can't hear low end anymore, and your ears are, you know, it's a difficult, yeah, and then that can cause tinnitus, for sure. Like all kinds of changes, you know. It's important to try and, you know, go to an ear, nose, and throat guy, or sometimes Sudafed, or those, you know, you don't want to use them too much, but those nasal Sudafed that you spray up your nose, you know, and it'll open up your. Sometimes I find that'll work to help get the eustachian, but I only use it like once because you can become addicted to that stuff so fast. You know, you can't breathe without it after a while. Do you still have the Steve Vai modded Marshall? That's Steve's. He literally let me use it when it was in Dave Friedman's shop for repair. Just allowed me it was very kind of him to let me use it in the video. So, and do a little interview and everything with me. And that was so cool of him. I love that video. That was a really fun one to do. Just the way it came together and stuff. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. Music Life says, I read on the CMR.com website about pickup height and how to set them up. Never knew there was a science to it. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the Joe Walsh video on it. There's a Joe Walsh video on how he sets pickup height, and that's about how I do it. You know, he's listening, he's setting the bass side a little lower, he's using a clean sound, and he's, you know, just setting the volumes kind of. He does it on a Les Paul, but it would apply to any kind of guitar, I think. Yeah. Okay. Moving down through the chat here. Sorry, so far back. I want to sound like Black Sabbath's first album. What gear do I need? You need a Rangemaster style treble booster, and you need a Laney amplifier. But something like a Marshall would work too. It's a very similar sound to Brian May, you know, except he used an AC30. So yeah, treble booster into the normal channel of a Laney was what he did. And so it's a very dark sound into that channel too, normal channel. But you hit it with the treble booster and it's instant Sabbath, and early Judas Priest was the same, by the way. Rangemaster into Marshalls. Great sound. I did a whole video on this. If you want to watch my video on treble boosters, and I do play a little Sabbath in there. Played with an SG and stuff. And yeah, the Magic Rangemaster treble booster, the secret sound of so much hard rock and metal. If the PQ3 and the ADA was late 80s rock guy shred tone, then the Rangemaster and English tube amp combo was 60s into 70s proto metal guitar tone. Are you going to be live from NAMM next week? You know, NAMM is done on Sunday, so I think I'll be here. Yeah, I'll just be here and I'll give you a little NAMM wrap up. NAMM is Thursday, Friday, Saturday now. And I am going. I'm headed down there. So if anybody's there, say hi. Do you shoot and edit yourself, basically? Yeah, I do everything. I've had people edit my videos a little bit over the years, but I always come back to doing it myself. Everything for the past 4 years or something has been all me. And I really enjoy it, except it's too much work. But if I had somebody to help, that would be great. But let's see what else we got here. Mo2 or UA for audio interface. I use UA, but Mo2 makes nice stuff. Not that they don't, you know. I'm a UA guy. I recommend UA and Apogee. I love Apogee too. I'm good friends with. I mean, they're like family to me. So, yeah. Have you ever been to Sweetwater Gear Fest? Yes, was there last year, and I don't know what's going on with it this year. Actually, no idea. Happens in June, I guess. Don't know what the plans are. They had a kind of a YouTuber hang there last year, but it was cool to go. We'll see if it happens again. I don't know. I love the Sweetwater folks, so I've been to a couple of them. They'll probably go back to what they did before, I would think, like, because it was like COVID times and stuff, and then nobody was going. But the years before that I went, there were seminars, and it was like a little mini trade show, like with people in the parking lot all set up with their booths and everything under tents, and it was quite cool. How loud did Edward Van Halen play on stage? I mean, pretty loud, I think, judging from what I know. You know, in the club days, it was that one main head, sometimes I think slaved, you know, to other amps, or daisy chained, you know, to other heads. But I think he was also using the Variac originally as a volume control, you know, trying to turn it down to less voltage means more reasonable on stage. So a 100-watt Marshall is really loud if you turn it on 10 by any stretch. So, you know, backing the voltage down to 90, the amp was probably making 60 watts or something, and it was just a little more reasonable, probably get a 3 dB reduction or something. But he played pretty damn loud. I mean, if you watch him in the original footage, you can just hear the feedback and the volume coming off the, you know, and some of the bootlegs that are out there of, like, there's one at the Pasadena Hilton or something, I think, where they're playing some gig, and it's at probably 75 or 76 or something, and it's so cool, and his tone is so cool, and it's just raw amp. You can just hear it's like, I don't know how it was recorded, but it's a really cool recording. You can hear he played loud, you know. Long story that I won't get into right now, but I played his last, you know, the touring rig and stuff like that, and from, you know, the rig that he used through the final Van Halen show, and it's at volume, it's formidable, you know. It's really it's great sounding. I wouldn't say it's like absurdly loud, but it's loud, and definitely, you know, much feedback as you want and everything, and yeah, great. Really fun. My buddy's old Music Man amp was picking up a ton of signals the other day. It was a ground issue with the output jack. I think that's going back to the fuzz comment where somebody was having issues with radio stations with a fuzz. Yeah, many times pedals. I mean, I've had that happen with Phase 90s for whatever reason. It's like a strange thing where you turn it on, you can hear a radio getting through. Jeff says the SL68 is the only amp that gets the Van Halen sound. I would agree in you know, something that's available now that really gets you to Van Halen 1, Van Halen 2 kind of sound that's all in one box without needing a Variac, without needing to do all the extra stuff. You know, it's really, really great for it. Agreed. The world needs a recessed Floyd Sir PT Sig. I would like that. I would like I don't really like, if I did a Floyd on my guitar, and I've thought about it, I would probably recess it, but not back route. I don't need the pull-up 8 octaves thing, you know? And I love the look without all the wood taken out and the, you know, the massive back route. It's funny because I actually had a Sir done with a Floyd that originally had a Strat style trem on it, and I got a Floyd put on it. It was when I was experimenting with locking at the bridge, but not having a locking nut and just using, locking tuners. And they did my old Sunburst Sir like that, but they back routed it. And when I got there to pick it up, I was like, ugh. And I hadn't specified. So because they back route everything with a Floyd, I think. And I didn't say no back route. So it's my fault to not put it on the work order. But, the guitar still served a good purpose too. But I will probably at some point get another, I should take that guitar and get it done like with same bridge, same everything, but just do a new body and everything, and use that neck and stuff, and not do the back route. I should do that with that guitar. I gotta get on that, because that guitar I just haven't played it since. And that was a big part of it. I don't like all that wood taken out down there. I have it on this modern. I mean, this is back routed, and with the whole recess and everything. Look at that thing. It's so pretty. It's root beer metallic. I said if I'm getting a shred guitar, I want it brown. This was also my first guitar from them with scrape binding, I think, which is, I've had this thing. Some people I play this and they're like, whoa, you got a new modern. I'm like, I've had it since 2008. They've been out a long time. But anyways, I digress. Yeah. Thoughts on Fender Ultras? They seem to be designed to compete with Surs. I would say that's probably accurate. I haven't played one though. Yeah. I have a Peter S. McCarty 594 single cut with covered Thornbucker neck. Cool. Played drop D and C sharp alt rock. What do you recommend for the bridge? The Thornbucker Plus is going to be probably a little bit brighter. The Thornbucker 2 would be just slightly darker and hotter, a little warmer and just a little more push. I'd probably go Thornbucker 2. It's going to sound great. Go for it. Are people diming amps and playing in the same room as the cabinet? How are people not deaf? Well, some are and some aren't. The ears are a funny thing. No, I don't think all ears are created equal. Double tracking rhythm guitars. I'm indecisive on swapping out to a different guitar for the second playthrough. Sometimes I do everything with the same guitar, and sometimes I'll change the guitar, sometimes I'll change the amp, and just be like, well, whatever feels good. There's no right or wrong, If you do it and it feels a little too much like a mono sound, if you're a good guitar player and you keep it really tight, and like it can sound a little too much like a wall, but that could be what you want. You might want it to sound almost like one part. But if you want the variety and a little more, complexity in the recipe, brighter guitar, brighter amp, there's no right or wrong answer to that, Might be the right thing for one song and the wrong thing for another song, to use both different guitars and different amps, or a different guitar and a different amp, or whatever. You know what I'm saying. Corey with a super chat. Thanks, brother. The negative of nice weather is that I miss more of your live chats. That's a good thing. You're better to be outside than be, but it's nice to have you here for a second. Hope you have a great summer, and I still appreciate your knowledge and insight. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you. Since you know bright cap values and how they sound, what do I think the Grace is? I have no idea, because it's so dependent on many things in the circuit, how it responds. I have no clue. I would say it's more than it's a fair difference, but maybe not a 4700. And it's just where the gain stages, the sort of topology of the preamp and stuff, and then where that gain is and where the volume, where that thing comes in the circuit, it makes so much of a difference. So I have no idea what the value is. My guess is it's not a 4700, maybe it's a 200 or a 500 or something like that, PF, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Okay. Do I know if John Suhr is ever going to bring in an SE series? I don't think so. It could happen at some point, especially if anything ever happens, like where, who knows, over time. Like, let's say I don't know. I mean, like if John wants to retire or something, which he doesn't. I don't think he'll ever retire, but things happen with companies, right? Where if I, and none of this is like happening. So I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head right now. Paul Reed Smith, this could happen. Like, what happens if the company changes hands or goes somewhere else? And then you see what happens with, like, companies such as Gibson and the different directions they'll take, or whatever. Sometimes it feels like nothing changes. Other times things change, But I'll tell you this much. Right now, the way that John describes it to me is the part that he enjoys of this business is the hands-on and being there and being a part of the process. So if that gets taken out of the equation and now it's everything being done overseas and he's just managing the business and, seeing things on paper and looking at spreadsheets and money and the way that he's no connection to the guitar anymore because now it's coming out of Korea or something. The part that he loved is gone, which I really appreciate about him. That's the way he's like, this, having everything here is what I like in his factory where he can go into work and see the things happening, physically be a part of the process of walking around and being a part of the building of the guitars, So it might not make the most sense for financially or for being expansion, the constant business expansion mind of like, we always need to grow and grow and grow. But we've had a lot of talks about that. John has a lot of reverence for his buddy Tom Anderson, who he says has 14 employees, a small shop, and he's been like that for years. And he makes the guitars he makes every year, and that's it. And he doesn't really have any interest in that changing. And it's like, that's cool. It doesn't have to be this where things are constantly like, what's wrong with that? It's like as long as you got dealers and people are still ordering guitars and stuff, and you're happy with being right there, and that it's what you like. It's like, I think that's awesome. So affordable guitars for the masses is sort of not his passion, Yeah, it's not where I don't think he ever wanted to be. Although other people would like that. And to the other side of the coin, and to be fair, I think PRS has done a pretty wonderful job of it, of the SEs. I would have guessed that would have never worked, that it was going to cheapen the brand and it was going to be a failure. And because that was just every other company, what we saw happen with when Charvel went to Japan and then eventually to, they got Charvet. And then you see the Charvel name just got diluted. And it just kind of by the 90s, it was like, it's like, what is it anymore? It's a bit of a race to the bottom when that happens. And then now they're kind of, now they're going to U.S. custom shop again. And they try and, and then it's a bit of a return to form, but it's different, right? It changed and everything. With PRS, I sort of thought, that's going to happen with SE. It's going to be like PRS, and then they'll go to Chinese-made PRSs, and it'll be like, and they still might make some stuff in the States, but it dilutes the whole thing. Didn't really happen. They managed to weather that like quite well, I thought. And the SEs have this great reputation for being, good, solid guitars for a reasonable price. So, and I guess I'm a bit of a, this is the 80s that we're talking about here. Speaking of EVH, I think they make, some of their guitars that are done in Mexico are done in Japan. The original, when they went overseas, originally it was EVH was all American for a while. And then the first ones that came out were Japanese, and they were really, really good, because Japanese, factories, they make terrific guitars. So it's like they were solid. So maybe it's my 80s way of thinking, but I do understand John's perspective of he wants the guitars that are being made to be in that factory where he can see them and he can be a part of the process because that's what he loves. Sorry, I was going to hit this one. I love the sound of AC/DC's high voltage. What is that? It's so gnarly. It's just like straight up. I don't really know. I mean, I'd have to look and see if there's any kind of, because, eventually they were using 2203s and 2204s and stuff. I think back in the day, Angus used to use a JTM 45 and Malcolm was on a super bass. That's what I always heard. But it was probably changed every record and whatever Marshalls were, whatever was their famous. I think Malcolm was solidly super bass. I think that was his thing. But eventually you'd even see on stage like 2203, 2204 master volume looking amps on his side of the stage. So was he playing through a bass spec one or what was it? I don't know. It's interesting. So no, long story, I don't know, but it is a gnarly sounding, just the guitars sound like so raw. It's cool. And it changes song to song too, if you listen. I've gone through and listened and gone like, oh God, the guitar's so bright on this song, like on Angus's side, and then it'll be different on another one. So they're moving mics around. Everything's changing. How about adding a treble booster to get that bright tone like Angus, Eddie, Brian May? Well, Brian May, the treble booster is a massive, it's 50% of the sound, I would say. Angus and Eddie, not so much, I think that Angus is the easiest. He's straight up good, I would say just your average lead spec Marshall of the day, maybe 50 watt turned up to 6, nice and loud, no attenuation, feedback coming from the guitar and the volume on stage, and that's Angus, right? Eddie's a super lead on 10, with slightly different recipe. Not playing a Gibson, playing a Fender style guitar, except when he was playing the Ibanez. Crown Jewel Music Gear Review. Hey Pete, I know you got a lot of questions on the PS100, but how well does it do at bringing up the volume of an amp in live settings? Great. I mean, it's basically a 100 watt amp, so getting a Club Royale to AC30, no problem. You'll be able to get it at any reasonable gig volume. It'll work great for that. Even the 50 watt version will be louder than a 30 watt AC30, so. Let's see. Thank you for the super chat as well, Crown Jewel Music Gear Review. Been playing for 7 years, but whenever I try to learn a full song, I just get bored and never finish it, even if it's not difficult, and I love the song. I guess maybe having a purpose to learn the song. I mean, not that has to be, but maybe for you joining a band, I don't do a lot of practicing either, to be honest. I practice and I learn songs when I have a purpose to do so. So, like, in other words, a gig coming up. So maybe joining a band, and then trying to rock out. Maybe it's just sort of, I don't really like the idea of just playing to just, some of you guys out there do this. It's not a criticism at all. I mean, I think it's wonderful to just enjoy playing. But generally, I have to have a purpose in mind. Sometimes it's just the thrill of getting down a new technique and then being able to do it is really cool, I guess, for me too. I get that. But if I'm learning a song, Van Halen is the one exception where I've learned things passionately to just try and be able to get it under my fingers and see if I can play the song end to end. Like, I'm the one. It's like when I realized I can play this whole song, like from bottom to top. I know every lick. I can play the whole thing. Kind of cool, like as a, just an achievement or whatever. And then it's kind of fun to do, no gig or whatever coming. But I would say generally these days, if I'm learning a song, it's because I got to go out and play it on stage. So what I'm suggesting to you is maybe a local jam or find somewhere that's an outlet where, learning those songs will be somewhere where you can go play them and stuff. And then you'll have an end goal of like going to rock out somewhere. Might be helpful. Just an idea. Tonex review coming. I'm going to do something the week after NAMM. Have you tried any of the TAD red bass tubes, says Jeff? Yeah, I did a video on it, actually. I was one of the first guys, I think, to order the L34s, and I have them in that amp. That 50 watt Marshall up there has the TAD red bass, and they sound good. I recorded with it and stuff recently, and it rocks. Is the Galleon Kruger still living? It is, but I never got it fixed. So I still got to convince Dave to do it. It's 2 guys. I got to go because I got to meet some friends for lunch that are here from out of town. I wish we've got more people online now than I'm just gonna go like another 3-4 minutes here, and then I'm gonna jet because I can get there really quick where we're gonna go. But some folks are in town for NAMM and stuff this week. Is an SL68 that much different from a Metro 10,000? No, it's not that much different. Metro 12,000 is honestly the 12301, I think, is the Eddie Van Halen serial number. How much of a geek am I, right? But yeah, so it was a 12 series. 10 series is more of the JTM earlier stuff. So 12 series is the one you're looking for. And yes, that's very close to the Eddie Van Halen spec, and whatever few parts are different, you could actually have changed to being which many Metro aficionados have done. To exactly like Ed's. Brian here says, thanks for the weekly guitar nerdery. Thoughts on Sir V70s, especially clean. A little low output for me. I'm worried the bridge may be too anemic on a Sir SSS. Yeah, I like a little bit more beef, so I'm a Sir V63 guy. That's me. So they're a little more like 50s pickups or maybe 70s pickups. I don't know. A little less mids and a little more scooped in the in between positions, but nice if you like clean stuff and funky. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Neil Sean or Lukather would be a great guest. I would love to have either of them on my show one of these days. I haven't had guests for a long time. I should get on it, shouldn't I? This is interesting. Ron Wood wasn't a full member of the Stones till '89. I didn't know that. See, it took him 15 years, right? Basically being in the band or so. Yeah, that's what happens, you know. Here's a super chat from John. Was shooting out a few fuzz pedals, settled on a fuzz factory in part because it was picking up radio. See, there's a guy that's glass half empty, glass half full. Radio, fantastic. Yeah. Byron says, John 5. Thank you for the, thank you, John. Happy Easter to you. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate you guys. Thank you. John 5 gets lots of his exposure in Motley. Didn't know who he was. Really? He was pretty out there, I mean, before. But yeah, I think he it's a great move for him, obviously, career-wise, no matter what. I have got the biggest floater right in the middle of my left eye right now in my vision. Sucks. Thinking about just going to the most badass eye doctor in the United States that I can find and just saying, fix it all. Tom's over in Europe with a super chat. Just want to say thanks for doing what you do. Thank you for being here, man. I learned so much from you. You have good energy and vibes. Thanks. Always watch a Dublin. I miss Dublin. I hope to get over there soon. Would love to go play there with Classic Rock Show next year. It's just a matter of getting on that ferry and going over the. It's a. I guess it adds expense and just you know, all the logistics of doing it. But I've done it before with other bands and it's super fun, except for the ferry ride itself, because you got to get off the ferry, and if it's at night, that means you're off and you're sleepy and you're, you know, I'd rather just stay down in the hold and risk my life. But I don't. What treble booster do you prefer? I've got a 65 amps color booster that are kind of hard to find, but they're great. They don't make them anymore, but it's basically a Rangemaster with a 5-position. It's really cool. I got some other ones too. In a pinch, my Unit 67 is great for a Rangemaster-ish thing that basically gets really close. Just had my 2017 PT Sur updated with Thornbucker Plus, Wilkinson saddle. Sounds fantastic, and the tuning is unreal. That's awesome. Great, John. Cool. That's awesome. Fantastico. So you got one of the first year or close to first year ones then. The saddles are just awesome. Yeah, like I think the bridge even sounds better with those saddles, right? Like, because you probably just put the saddles on the plate, and then did you notice the difference? Like, hey, maybe it's even more resonant than it was. Like something about the saddles are great. Do you ever have problems with your hands from playing much? You know, I don't anymore. I get occasional little, like, I've got little like nerve stuff occasionally through my wrist, and I just have to be careful about the angle I hold the guitar at and stuff. Or if I push too hard, I'll get like a nerve shock in my hand, and that's just carpal or in my elbow. But if I warm up, it's kind of weird. Playing makes it go away more. So the more warm I am, the less I have that. It's when I pick it up and I'm cold that I get it. So I think the blood starts to flow and stuff, and then I'm good, you know, after that. Hit the like button, says Richard. Thank you, sir. Yeah, please hit the like and help spread the show far and wide across the internet, the worldwide interwebs. There's a super chat from Darren. Thank you, sir. Holy super chats, I appreciate it. Do you need a load box between the Soldano SLL30 from its direct out when capturing Quad Cortex or Headrush Prime? Said so long as not powered. Long story short, you can capture that way from the direct out, but you need to be plugged into a cabinet still. So make sure you're plugged into your speaker cabinet while you're doing it. And don't, like, absolutely no, you know, if you're going to not be plugged into a speaker cabinet, you have to use a load box of some sort, for sure. But you can use that direct line out to run in the quad to capture as long as you're still plugged into a load. That's the bottom line. And a load means a cabinet or a load box or a load resistor. Yeah. Okay. Cole here. I'm getting all these super chats, and I got to run for lunch. I'm going to be late. It's been a couple months since I've been able to watch it live. It was nice to be a part today. Hey, man, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. And I do appreciate it. This is the best. And next week will be a NAMM wrap-up, I guess, because I will have gone to NAMM this week, and we can talk about what was there and how it went, whether or not I'm hungover, that kind of thing. Thanks for Billy Corgan's signature amp video. That's SQL. Thank you. Put out that one this week along with the PV6505 Synergy module video. It was a lot of fun. Doing some amp stuff is always fun. I like it. It's a nice change from pedals, because pedals are cool, but amps are cooler. All right, you guys, don't get a vitrectomy. What is that? Vitrectomy. That's not a vasectomy. That's a vitrectomy. Vitreous. So you mean replacing the vitreous, which is the fluid in your eye that fills. Really? Don't get one? Really? Because I've heard, well, it can go a couple different ways. Did you have a retinal detachment? Was that the result? I know that can happen if they're not done right. I digress. I don't want to get too into this, but it is an interesting subject. Maybe we can talk about it later at another time. Talking about getting my eyes fixed, getting IOLs or ICLs, implantable contact lenses, or interocular lens replacement, as they do when you've got cataracts. They replace your lenses, but they can fix your near vision and astigmatism and far vision and the whole 9 yards with the lenses. And it can be a risky thing for folks with extreme nearsightedness like me, because vitrectomy, when they replace your vitreous, you can get a retinal detachment. Anyway, that's enough about that. Love you all. Have a great week, and I'll see you after NAMM next Sunday, same time, same place. Let's meet here, shall we? Thanks, everybody. Over and out. Have a great week.